We're live.
Assalamu alaikum Nazreen. Atled beach is the istiqbal karan panis program पे online spet. इस पर तो पता चो हर बटवार या आतवार चेस एक मुनफरिद प्रोग्राम है तो एक ब्रॉडकास्ट पे सप्तान आज तिश आमद एक नो प्रोग्राम है अजुक प्रोग्राम आज हना मुख्तलिफ यम लिहाज कि आज करो इस फॉर्मेट छिम प्रोग्राम यथ मज आसन त्रे जबान अंग्रेज उर्दू ते कशुर क्याज कि यम कह सन पैनलिस्ट आज छ तिहंज मादरी जबान छ कशुर कह तिम छ समझान कशुर कह तम बावजूद कथ यह जहनशीन थवन कि यम सात वनान कश्मीरी बीइंग कश्मीरी तमिक मतलब गो युत योत कह कि कशुर बोलान या यम सन अजदाद या बसकिंदर वादी कश्मीर सू योत कश्मीरी कश्मीरी तिम तम खत कश्मीर हिस्टोरिकल कश्मीर तमिक बसकिंदर या तिहद अजदाद तम पे इत पे पता दुनिया अलग अलग मुल्कन मज वनकस बसित या कश्मीरीज बसित कित पे तम पन्न मतलब इन सोसाइटी मज तम रोजान तत कित तम पन कम्युनिटी ऑर्गेनाइज करान कम मसाइल तमन दरपेश कित तम पन कम्युनिटी मोबलाइज करान ताकि तम करान एड्रेस तम इश्यूज यह एक पहलू या अम मजीद कह पहलू कश्मीरी डायस्पोरस रिलेटेड तथ मुतलिक करो आज यथ पेज पे कत कम मेहमान तिहुंद तारफ दिनो तुम मेन साथी आमिना जी तम पे करो सवालन तो जवाबन सिलसिले जारी ओवर टू यू आमिना जी
Shukriya Tahir and Assalamu alaikum to everyone. Before I start, I would like to say that dreams do come true. Yes, they do. If only we wish and do a bit hard enough. It's very important and essential as a human that we have a sense of self and sense who we are. Yes, it is how we conceptualize ourselves. And it's very important that our identity, which provides us the understanding and our place in the world. Unfortunately or fortunately, this world is about numericals, about numbers. And you're not seen and you're not heard. And if you're not seen and you're not heard, you don't exist. And that's why we are here today. We're going to discuss about something which is very important. इससे पहले मैं शुरू करूं, मुझे एक इकबाल का एक शेर याद आ रहा है कि मंजिल से आगे बढ़ के मंजिल तलाश कर, मिल जाए तुझको दरिया वो समंदर तलाश कर, हर शीशा टूट जाता है एक पत्थर की चोट से, पत्थर ही तलाश कर जो शीशा तोड़ दे. And we are here to see that our Kashmiri diaspora is one of the most economically active and politically engaged ethnic minority in the United Kingdom. And today we are fortunate to have a panelist to discuss about the importance of census, which is going to take place in 2021. And it gives me immense pleasure to introduce our panelists today. And to start with, our first panelist is Dr. Shaheen Shora. What is very important is that everyone, I'm going to add a word passionate because they're very passionate about Kashmir. Dr. Shaheen Shora is a consultant psychiatrist and a medical lead for mental health services in UK. And as I said, she's passionate not only about Kashmir, but also about humanitarian cause, equality, empowerment, and cultural identity. Our next panelist is Mr. Khurshid Nahami. He is an IT business analyst, and he's, again, a passionate Kashmiri, and he's interested in everything in Kashmir. Yes, and including its world-famous culinary offerings as well. Our third panelist is Mr. Adil Khan. He is a London-based sailor who runs Sail for Kashmir, a social media platform to encourage dialogue and understanding between all those affected in Kashmir. He is a Cambridge trainer, scholar of religion and history. Our last but not the least panelist today is Ms. Parveen Khan. She's a community activist in West Sussex, Crawley. She is an active promoter of diversity, community cohesion in all the sectors of society. She worked with media outlets as well, including the BBC Radio. And as Tahir mentioned, that we'll be talking in all kinds of languages which we know today. And over to you, Tahir, to start our questions today.
Thank you, Amina ji. वैसे वन इस्तकबाल करान सान तमाम मेहमान कि तुम कड़ो पन कीमती वक्त आयो सान पेज पे करो पन ख्यालात पन तजुर्बात जाहिर ते पहले ही मैं यहाँ पे जाना चाहूँगा डॉक्टर शाहीन के पास, और मेरा सवाल उनसे ये रहेगा कि आजकल बहुत बातें हो रही है अबाउट दिस यूके सेंसस, सो यूके सेंसस बाय कश्मीर ब्रिटिश नेशनल्स। तो क्या आप हमारे जो व्यूअर्स हैं उनको बता सकते हैं कि what it is all about, this UK census and and the Kashmiri British nationals who are taking interest in this?
Sechar shukriya tuhun Tahir sab, Dr. Amna Tube pend online to editu me mok panis platforms pe teach me dayum time as ke bichas tuhun desiyat panelist pe which you varia ak important mozu as kal yete England ismans. Bukar gwad English button explain ye census amich kyach importance to pat karbi kashir put translate. So basically, census means an official count or a survey of a population. And in England and Wales, this happens every 10 years. The first census that ever took place was in 1801, and the last one was in 2011. So after every 10 years, the census takes place, and we will be having a census in England on the 31st of March, 2011, this year. And why is census important? Census is the only means which gives the country or a nation an idea about its population and what the households look like. Hence, it's absolutely important because it's very unique, and this is the only way by which the governments will know how to have an impact on everyday lives. So basically, it gives an overall picture of, what is your population, what comprises your nation. This is the first time in its history that the census 2021 will be a digital census, which means that you will be able to put your choices in the census form online. Obviously, in 10 years, every decade, a lot of change happens. And again, the census is very important to understand the changing needs of a society. Kashir Burton samjhagu ye ki census uk matlab chu ye ak survey asan yath mans tu panun yostay abadi chu tat chu tu hakan wuchit ki at abadi mans kam qismik luk chu yim gar chu timan mans kida fad chu rozan hins vans kya chu background kya chu ye chu ak asan tarik census im sitem ye pata chu when ye kya chu zaruri. The importance is that it helps the governments in England, the local authorities, and also the councils to plan for the needs of their population. So the needs are predominantly education, it's to do with employment, it's to do with health services, and then the ramifications, for example, transport. Unless you don't have the basic understanding of what the composition of your given area or a given council what population comes under them is, you really won't be able to accurately then develop services to meet these various needs of your population. So that really, is the background of the census and why it's important. And it is conducted by what's called the ONS, or the Office of the National Statistics. And this is what really is going to happen. And as I said, 21st March 2021 is the census date for this year. Tahir sir, I hope कि मैं करूँ तुमको question answer.
Bilkul. We will come back to other aspects of this question as well later on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shaheen. Lovely. It was what you said, Shaheen, was it gives the census 2021. What's its importance is that basically it gives us an overall picture of our population. And it's very important. One thing you said is about that it's going now digital. And also it's very important to meet the needs of the population. And it's going to be on 21st of March, 2021. So I'll go to Miss Parveen. I just want to have on your question is that how does a British Kashmiri national, how do they view it? And when we come to the numbers, how many numbers, and significant is the number of British Kashmiri in UK?
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I hope everybody's safe. It's a brilliant discussion here, so thank you very much. There are over 1 million Kashmiris in the UK, settled in different cities, settled in different towns and villages, and they contribute and they are very much part of the community, the wider community in the UK. And as part of the Kashmiri identity campaign, we have found it a little bit hard to wake up a lot of the Kashmiris. And I think that's because we've never actually questioned our identity, maybe. We haven't actually seen who we are, where we are. When the first and second generation came to the UK in the 50s and 60s, it was very much about survival, bringing your kids up, supporting your families back home. So this census campaign for me is very important. It makes a discussion open, it makes us debate, it makes us question who we are and where we want to go and where we have come from. So, and with the social media aspects, with us all getting together, having platforms such as this, it's important for us to get together as a community and question ourselves and question who we are. So right now, it's a moment. It's a really significant moment for Kashmiris all over the world, I think, to look at our identity, to look at who we are and where we want to go, politically, socially, economic-wise, and as a self-development. Who are we as Kashmiris? Where do we belong? And I think this time, with the census in the UK, it has woken up a lot of people to look at these issues. And I think it's very important that we get the elderly and the young together to have this conversation.
Thank you so much, Parveen, for your insights. अब मैं यहाँ पे आदिल साहब के पास जाना चाहूँगा. ये जो पूरा जो सेंसस है, ये क्यों इम्पोर्टेंट है कश्मीरी ब्रिटिश नेशनल्स के लिए?
देखिए, बहुत सी बातें तो कह चुकी हैं शाहीन भी और परवीन भी कि इस वक्त हमारे लिए बहुत अहम लम्हा है हमारी तारीख का, जो कुछ लोगों की तारीख इधर ब्रिटेन में 3-4 जनरेशन्स की तारीख है सेटलमेंट की इस मुल्क में. तो उस वक्त से बहुत कम्युनिटी के बहुत से ऐसे लोग हैं जिनको मौका नहीं मिला कि वो अपनी पहचान जो है एथनिक ग्रुप की, अपने ग्रुप की पहचान जो है वो रजिस्टर करा सकें ऑफिशियल रिकॉर्ड्स में. अब बहुत से मसाइल जो होते हैं एक ग्रुप के, ग्रो के, वो उनके अपने कल्चर की वजह से भी कभी कभार होते हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल इस बार जो कोरोना वायरस के वबा की वजह से बहुत सी एजुकेशन अपॉर्चुनिटीज जो थी, फॉर एग्जांपल पहाड़ी जुबान में जो कम्युनिकेशन थी, हमारी मेजॉरिटी कम्युनिटी जो है वो पहाड़ी स्पीकिंग है, कश्मीरी कम्युनिटी इधर, उनको वो कन्वे नहीं हो सकी नेशनल हेल्थ सर्विस के थ्रू. तो क्यों नहीं हो सकी? क्योंकि वो रजिस्टर्ड जुबान नहीं है ऑफिशियली नेशनल लेवल पे. तो लोकल लेवल पे बहुत से जो हेल्थ सर्विसेज होती हैं वो नेशनली डिटरमिन की जाती हैं उसकी प्रायोरिटीज, और इसीलिए शायद हमारी कम्युनिटी में कुछ कोताहियां हुई, कुछ नाफहमी की वजह से, ना जानने की वजह से शायद कुछ गलतियां हो गई, और बहुत से बड़ा नुकसान हुआ है, बहुत बड़ा जानी नुकसान हुआ है, स्पेशली नॉर्थ में. मेरे अपने अंकल की फौत की हुई है रिसेंटली कोरोना की वजह से ही. तो बहुत से लोग ऐसे जो हैं जो इस वक्त ये मसले इसी वजह से भी समझे जा सकते हैं कि अगर आप अपने आप को रिकग्नाइज नहीं करा सके एज अ कम्युनिटी, आपकी कम्युनिटी के मसाइल जो है, आपकी कम्युनिटी की जुबान जो है या आपकी कम्युनिटी की मुख्तलिफ जुबानें जो हैं वो रजिस्टर्ड नहीं है ऑफिशियल डॉक्यूमेंट्स में, तो वो जब मुसीबत आए कोरोना की जैसी, तो वो रिस्पॉन्स नहीं हो सका अप्रोप्रिएट सरकार की तरफ से, सरकारी महकमों की तरफ से. तो इस तरह मैं समझाऊंगा कि ये इस वक्त एक क्रिटिकल मोमेंट था हमारी कम्युनिटी के लिए भी, ये समझने के लिए कि इसके अलावा हमारी ओवर क्राउडिंग है. बहुत से कम्युनिटी मेंबर जो हैं वो ओवर क्राउडेड हाउसेस में रहते हैं, ओवर क्राउडेड हाउसेस में रहते हैं, उसके अलावा हमारे एजुकेशन के बहुत से मसाइल हैं हमारी कम्युनिटी में, स्पेशली नॉर्थ में। तो ये जो बुनियादी मसाइल हैं ये, क्योंकि ये कम्युनिटी के अक्सरियत कम्युनिटी के मसाइल हैं, तो इसलिए कम्युनिटी के लेवल पे ही इसको टैकल किया जा सकता है, ताकि उसके मुताबिक जो the specific government departments which are responsible for raising awareness around job creation or employment awareness or career planning or housing planning, all of these are specific jobs which different government departments have and would be really useful for our community and important for them to be recognized as such, so that these things can be tackled for them as a community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adil. आपने बहुत खूब बोला कि what was important, what we learned. Maybe जो ये एक कभी अल्लाह ताला की तरफ से जो आ जाती है, इससे वबा आ गई कोविड, हो सकता है इसने हमें जगा दिया, हो सकता है it made us to make us to understand how important is it to be seen and to be heard, and that's why we are here today, because the message was not conveyed to our elderly population who understand more Pahari than English. We do get these difficulties, especially when you are in the hospital. जैसे कभी भी आपको कोई surgery करनी हो, तो we do have translators, as I did mention earlier as well, that we have translators who can make people understand what is the surgery about. क्योंकि हमने अपने आप को इस चीज में अपने आप को इंट्रोड्यूस नहीं कराया, अपने आप को ये नहीं कहा कि वी हैव अ लैंग्वेज। एक जैसे अभी प्रवीण ने कहा कि 1 मिलियन पीपल, और इनमें से अगर ये ऑलरेडी है सेंसस में, तो इट वुड हैव बीन इजी फॉर देम टू प्रोड्यूस द पैम्पलेट्स, टू प्रोड्यूस कोई भी इंफॉर्मेशन इन पहाड़ी, सो दैट, क्योंकि जब अपनी लैंग्वेज में आप सुनते हैं या किसी अपने आदमी से या किसी पर्सन से सुनते हैं कि दिस इज व्हाट इज इम्पोर्टेंट एंड क्यों करना है, इट मेक्स एन इम्पैक्ट. Now I'm going to Mr. Khurshid Sahab. They all have talked about what is it, why is it important, and I want to ask you, according to you, what significance does it hold for Kashmiri British national identity?
Yes, thank you very much. You see, as other people have said, is that this allows the government to do the planning for policies for the future. I don't know if our listeners will know that Britain is a country that has a large number of minorities, and a vast majority of them are already registered within the census as a different category. We being a very big population, we've not had that opportunity previously because people maybe felt are you British or are you English or are you Welsh, Scottish? The Beostat Petasan Lekit, Tuchu Poextain, Kina or Hundustain. I says Tawata Lekit, Yamazat Kashmiriasan, Timasan Talan Lekit, Uchupa Poextain, guys, Timan Situtiman Ralan Tatsit. Yum Kashir at Kitchen, Makuza Kashimans, Timaliakan, one choice in Hundustain passport, and Uslago, British Indian. My game city, I say advantage, guys, is Hako Ashapata, Ushwara Nafari, Yathmul Customers. Guys got on a panning category, Alag, you sure. The time sit at Kitchen, Ushkarantat Kushish, you get us in recognizing Karna, different ethnic group, Kashmiri, the time sit you at Kitchen and Ideal Serban Wing or Winuktamat. Times in Gativaria at Kitchenan, Farak at Kitchenan, government is paying Yim choose into account when making policies and on all different things.
Shukriya Khurshid sir. Okay. You want to continue?
Basti at Kitchenan, I'm city, I assume, currently classified as a different ethnic grouping on its own, apart from Pakistan and India.
शुक्रिया खुर्शीद साहब, बिल्कुल इसका खुर्शीद साहब होना चाहिए कि यस यू कैन सेंसस हम से मिलियन यो इस मुनफरिद तशख्खुस कश्मीरीजन सो गैसे रिकॉग्नाइज ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट जरिए. अब मैं यहाँ पे परवीन जी की तरफ जाना चाहूँगा। परवीन जी, व्हाट इज़ BKIC? BKIC की बात हम कर रहे हैं, तो ये कैंपेन है, ये किस लिए है?
Okay. Yes, we've had a lot of points that are very similar here. So first of all, I want to say, like how Shaheen said, the census has been around in the UK since 1801, and it's very important that census is a historical document. So it's a historical document in the sense when people go back to history or look at the history of the UK, they will see, if we put down Kashmiri, that there were Kashmiris here for a long time, and their contribution that they have done in the UK society. The census is economically, socially, it's a fabrication of the UK society as we see it. BKIC, which stands for British Kashmir Identity Campaign, is a campaign led largely by Kashmiris in the UK, but we also have non-Kashmiris who are helping us with this campaign. And I really want to emphasize that having non-Kashmiris understand what identity means and what Kashmiri identity is to us is very important, and we salute them for helping us. It's a campaign to highlight that Kashmiris are an ethnic group, a very important ethnic group, the contributions we've made in the society and in the wider society as well. I think, fair enough, the UK census is relevant here, but remember also in America and other countries, we can also reach out, and hopefully when they have their census, we can have some sort of impact that we have from here. So the BKIC campaign is very important. It makes us feel counted and worthy and valued. And I think the BKI, it is very much about how we value ourselves and how we as a society, as a community, not only address the problems that we have, but address the positiveness that we have and the positive impact that we can. And as Kashmiris, we should value who we are, value where we've come from, value the sacrifices of our elders. And with this campaign, we are connecting the elders, the young, the non-Kashmiris. So it's very important that this campaign continues, not just for the census, but further onwards. And BKIC, it gives an opportunity to everybody to have a voice. Who we are, where we want to go, where do we put ourselves and place ourselves. So for me, this campaign is very important. The census is very important. It's about being recognized. It's about being counted. It's about having our presence in this UK society. And so we're trying to connect the young and the old, as I've said before, and we do need a lot of input from the young for their self-development, for their rights. And for the BKIC community, it's getting everybody together and having a connection. So this campaign is vital. And please, everybody who is kind of not sure about things, we're available here to answer any questions. So if you need to contact BKIC, we're all available. But please, let's get this campaign more highlighted, more in the news. Yeah, it's a very important campaign, not just for now, but for the future.
Thank you, Parveen. Very good insight. Just a few points which I could gather is that you rightly mentioned that it is a historical document, and yes, it's very important to put ourselves into it. And it not only will it emphasizes, and it will let the community in here, in a wider community, know that what are our contributions as a Kashmiri. And what I liked is very much is that you asked young people to contribute, because if we are doing it right now, it will benefit them as well.
Okay.
And it's, as you said, it's very important to feel valued, and it's very important to feel ourselves as to be a valuable things. Valuable people.
And I think that value comes from within ourselves. It comes from who we as individuals, as families, as communities. And I think if we're honest here, the Kashmiri diaspora all over the world has not gone up has not gone up. We have not valued and seen ourselves as part of the global context. And we need to, I mean, for me, the census is not just about the UK. As I said, it's about other communities, countries. I'm in touch with people in America who had their census last year. So they said, we didn't have this opportunity. We didn't have this discussion. We didn't have this conversation about what our value is, what our contributions are. And there are many factors of that. But I think right now with the BKIC campaign, it's start of a conversation that we should continue for generations on.
Yeah, again, it is about existence. It's about to be seen, and it's about to be heard. And same thing, Shaheen, Parveen said how she views it, how is it important. What do you think, what is this BKIC campaign and how is it important for you? What do you think about it, Shaheen?
Thank you, Amina. So, you know, as Parveen said, she covered a lot of it. This is the first time that a British Kashmiri identity campaign has been set up. And the reasons for that is when census happened 10 years ago, we only registered less than 25% of the total number of Kashmiris that were actually present. So around 25,000 was the total count, which in the larger scheme of things, if you imagine we are over 1 million, means that, you know, we are not really getting recognized the way we should. We are not even, you know, being counted in accurate numbers that we should be. And hence we felt that, you know, this is the time for all of us to work together. And I'm immensely proud of the fact that Kashmiris across the diaspora, you know, be it from the AJK, from the Indian side of Kashmir, Gilgit-Baltistan, you know, we are all coming together for a common purpose, which is how do we ensure that we get recognized as a Kashmiri, which is our basic ethnicity, which is the binding force of all together, despite the fact that we may speak different languages in the 5 different regions of the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir. And we also felt that, you know, our people, Kashmiris, weren't necessarily as aware of the significance of participating in a important national statistical count, which is the census. So this was an opportunity, but also a gap we felt, and hence we created this as an awareness campaign to begin with. But what it has also done is that it's united us all together, which obviously, you know, has even far-reaching benefits. It also is hugely important and significant because if you are not recognized, as you said at the beginning, you know, you are not visible, you're almost invisible. How would people know how are you different? What are your characteristics? What are your healthcare needs? What is your educational status? What is the attainment and the contribution of you as a people, you know, economically to the larger society? And if we don't make use of this opportunity, which comes once in a decade, but the way we are at crossroads as Kashmiris, I think I see it as an opportunity of a lifetime because we'll get recognized. It means that we are recognizing the contributions of the older generation that has made significantly huge contributions to the economy, to businesses, to the society in UK, as Parveen said, but also to ensure that we safeguard the rights of our present Kashmiris and safeguard the future for our children and our future generations, because this will be a platform to begin from when you're recognized as a you know, ethnic a minority or a different ethnic group. So what I would say is that every individual matters. Every vote that you put in, which is basically means that, you know, your number, it counts because it adds to the huger number. I think we have to give up this laid back attitude, someone else will be doing it or someone else will do it for us. It really is both our legal requirement and a legal duty, but also our responsibility and our right to ensure that our interests are safeguarded, but also that we are recognized as a community so that services, you know, cater to our needs. For example, Adil gave example of COVID-19. The highest morbidity and mortality with regards to COVID-19 was for the Black, Asian, and ethnic minority communities, and Kashmiris faced the large brunt of it. But there was nothing you could do about it. You didn't know, for example, how many are there, what are their health parameters like, what are their characteristics that makes them vulnerable, whether it's multi-generational household living, whether it's, genetic predisposition to illnesses like diabetes, hypertension, cardiac diseases that made them more vulnerable. So it's immensely important. A couple more things.
Shaheen, just I wanted to interrupt you. Just that one thing is that, you're going back to the figures. You were saying that previously only 25,000 people had registered themselves as Kashmiri. That is not 25% of a million. That is a very small percentage. It's not 20. I thought I heard you say 25%. So it's a very small, insignificant figure. It's a very low figure.
Thank you, Khurshid. You are right. It's not 25%. It's actually very insignificant. Just to carry on and finish off. So apart from the government and the local authorities, using those numbers to plan services, it also gives charities an opportunities to really use the census information, get funding to support people, that may be in need. And we know a lot of our British Kashmiris are still from the sort of lower middle class or working class families. And also, businesses then focus on an area and, can create job opportunities. So a lot of our British Kashmiri community, for example, are taxi drivers. And the the COVID-19 had a huge adverse impact on their businesses, on their ability to earn. But can you imagine what impact it had on them psychologically, emotionally, and also how adversely affected their physical and mental health? And none of this was recognized. No one spoke about it because, we in the first place aren't recognized as a ethnic group, which is British Kashmiris. And hopefully, with this British Kashmiri identity campaign, but also, our hope is that all of us do recognize ourselves, and then we are there to be able to be listened to obviously be more visible, so that we are fairly getting access to services across health, education, jobs, opportunities, and that our contributions are equally counted as well. Kashir put man bu ye ki yechu British Kashmiriya variya zyada contribution karmu san society mas. Magar badqismati ٲسۍ कि أسۍ ٲسۍ हमेशा आसान यकजुट ٲسۍ नہٕ أسۍ आसान कि أسۍ ٲسۍ आसान अलहैदٕ. यह हसा छु आजाद कश्मीरुक, यह छु पहाड़ी, यह छु वैली हुंद कशुर. तो أسۍ ٲسۍ नہٕ زانٛہہ इकवट गसٲنی. Yus ये British Kashmiri identity campaign ची छ अख गोडनिच step या अख गोडनिक कदम कि अस छि सारी यकजुट गछितन पानवइन इकवटे अथ पेट काम करान तो इंशाल्लाह ब्रोट कुन करो अस बाकिन चीजन पेट ते काम यकजुट गछितन. शुक्रिया.
Shukriya Shaheen ji. Bilkul. Shaheen ji said that it's a historic opportunity and every number counts. So my question to Adil is, how are you going to make sure that you reach to everyone? What are the different means through which you are reaching out to the people and raising awareness about this issue?
So I've been helping out as a volunteer in the BKIC campaign on the media side. And our strategy has been threefold: to educate about the census, to make people awareness raising about it, and then to encourage them to act on it, to take action. And in this strategy, as such, we are in partnership with ONS, the main government body, which collects the data for the country. So we're helping ONS reach their objectives of reaching out to everyone and educating and making them aware about it. So we're assisting as much as possible their own objectives. As well as we're doing a lot of community influencing work through volunteers, through a network of volunteers around the country. And then we're doing lots of social media campaigning as well. So in the social media campaigning, we're using videos produced by our volunteers, and we're using cartoon animations as well to make education and awareness raising. Some of these videos are in English, some of them in Pahari, some of them in Kosher. So those are the means that we're using so far. If you have any further question, I can answer them.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a particular channel or any radio station which is listened to by the British Kashmiris a lot, which you can leverage?
There are quite a few. There are quite a few online channels, and we're constantly our volunteers and our national spokesperson is constantly on them. There's some which are run in Pahari, some which are run in Urdu, and in English. And we, Dr. Shaheen and myself, we were on a channel the other week together, where we were speaking in Kosher and Pahari and English and Urdu together. So we're using all our means and capacities to mobilize in the media network as much as we can at the moment. And there's a bit of interest from the British press as well, but it's developing in the campaign. Yeah.
Thank you, Adil. Yeah,
just
go ahead.
that. So, as Adil was saying, we also do live shows through television channels. And we've already done about 3 such programs, very similar to how you are doing, but it captures again a wider audience. So World Kashmir Television did a program recently, and prior to that we had another channel doing it. We are trying to use as much social media platforms as possible. So apart from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, which is quite a very well-used tool, especially by the young. And hopefully, the local campaigning, which happens within communities, within groups. Parveen can tell you she's very active in Crawley. So we have similar subgroups of the British Kashmiri Identity Campaign that work locally with communities and with the local representatives. So we are trying to really use as many means as possible so that we reach out to everyone, and we will much appreciate if everyone that's listening and has joined us live would also actively encourage their friends, their families, their local communities, and share information about the census, and more importantly, the significance and the importance of why we should get involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaheen. Thank you, Adil. Definitely, media will play its role, and that's the way to go ahead. And it's important to convey the message. And I think that this is the part of it, as well as we're discussing in a program where we usually talk in Kashmiri and is more focused upon the difficulties facing in Kashmir right now, whatever we talk. But this is for the first time because we want to reach this campaign to each and every person who is listening to us. And why is it important? Acting as a volunteer, unfortunately, at present, we can't go. From as a person, but media, as Shaheen said, and as Adil said, talking on radio stations, TV, that is helping, and that will help. And as Shaheen mentioned, please spread the word and and let people know why is it important, and why we should take part. Shaheen, also you said at one time that someone else will do it, as well as sometimes we think that how does it matter if only one person doesn't vote, or one person doesn't go and put themselves into this census. It matters. Even one person will matter. It will add a number, it will add a figure. I'll go to now Mr. Khurshid. As Adil and Shaheen said that they are trying their best to reach to the audience in whatever way they can. The question is that how did you see the response of the different sections of the Kashmiri diaspora about this campaign about census and BKIC? Mr. Khurshid.
Yes, as Shaheen said, sort of, it's allowed the both sides of the Kashmir, sort of, from the Azad Kashmiri and from the Valley based Kashmiri. Yath pet you gay asik khatra atkishno akoy cheez yath ach cheez yath pet is hekos doshway side kirit join forces guys you should doshway khatra important. So this is an important thing. Bechu azkal chu technology WhatsApp Facebook tamsit yim cheez vesna brot asan it's much easier for people to take part and to mobilize people. So that's and people have become much more interested generally all over the world. You see social media, involved in cheese yiman tim important basan azkal chuchan Burma has Myanmar manchigatan atkishnan julus chalan atkishnan so yet yemsich baran interest. So a lot of people have become interested, so from both communities, and we can social media check on istemal karit the tamsit chugatan tiki. So
शुक्रिया खुर्शीद साहब। परवीन साहिबा, आपसे मेरा सवाल ये है कि जो लार्जर यूके सोसाइटी है, अदिल साहब ने अभी कहा कि देयर इज सम इंटरेस्ट बाय द ब्रिटिश प्रेस, बट व्हाट अबाउट द लार्जर यूके सोसाइटी? हाउ इज इट विविंग your campaign and this whole effort, your endeavor?
Let me just give you a bit of background. The UK has always been a diverse country. From black soldiers that came in the Tudor times, it's always had an influence of black and Asian culture, and it has migration for many, many, many years. However, there's always been racism in the UK, and we must address this issue. Racism in the sense of discrimination. For example, when we first came into the UK, my mum used to wear shalwar kameez, and people used to, look down upon her, maybe sometimes, swear at us if we walked, if it was Eid. So we would be wearing our shalwar kameez, going to masjid. So we've had this resistance of who we are as Kashmiris, and maybe people and as Pakistanis and as Asians and as a black community. So there's always been racism. However, in the last few decades, maybe, this idea and this understanding of identity, of who we are as people, as individuals. So, all these campaigns about, different groups, the LGBT group is very big in the UK. So through LGBT, through the rights of black people, through the rights of people coming from different areas and being individuals, the ideas of identity has very much come through in the UK. Who individually we are, who we are as migrants, who we are as people, what's our heritage, what's our culture, what's our roots. So in England, the map of historical maps of finding out our background has become very important. So for the UK civil society, it's very much more open in looking at different identities, looking at the history of migrants, looking at different faiths, and finding out who we are as people and as communities. So that has changed. And especially with the Black Lives Matter movement in the last few years, that has really highlighted ideas of different colors in this world, different races in the UK, different religions, different faiths. So for that, the normal civic society in the UK is much more open about our discussion about being Kashmiri or Kashmiris and the languages that we speak. So for me personally, I've had really good response from my friends that are non-Kashmiris, from within my family that are non-Kashmiris. They love this idea that we're finally waking up to who we are. They don't know we're Kashmiris. People don't know. People only say, oh, Pakistan, or even Azad Kashmir, which is the big society that we know, and we say Azad Kashmir. But, you know, for example, we don't, a lot of even people within Azad Kashmir or the Azad Kashmiri diaspora don't even know where the valley is. So for this conversation to be having, and for this idea that we are making an impact in the wider society, it's happening. It is really happening. And I know we are having problems with getting the Western media on side, for example, the BBC or other news channels, to deal with not just the census, but us as Kashmiris and what is happening in the valley. It's very slow. And that's because of different influences that are going on within the media. But I've had a lot of good responses. I've always done, when I do a campaign or anything, I always include non-Kashmiris, because they don't have an understanding of our culture, of our faith, of our languages. So for me, I've done a softly approach. So for example, last year I had an exhibition on Kashmir, and there was majority of the people that came were from non-Kashmiri backgrounds. They didn't know where Kashmir is. They didn't know the problems that we're having with India. So I think it's on us, and it's our responsibility, and us, we should be accountable of how we put not only this census campaign to the wider community, but also the things that are happening in the valley and happening in Kashmir. So it's our responsibility to do this, and we can do it in a soft way. For me, I approach in a very soft way. I do exhibitions, I do poems, I have a conversation with non-Kashmiris, and then through that, I'm approaching the hard subjects that we all need to deal with. So, I mean, the Kashmiri diaspora is spread all over the UK. It's in prominent areas: Bradford, Birmingham, Sheffield. And I think we need to address that the first generation that came into the UK, they were very not much about their identity, even though they kept their identity. I mean, I know about Kashmir through my family. I know about Bahari through my family, and I speak it at home, because the first and second generation kept it going. But the non-Kashmiris or the civic society in the UK were not aware of these things that were happening in our countries back home, or weren't aware of the Bari language. And this is kind of our fault. It's our fault that we have not actually said to people, we are from Kashmir, this is who we are, this is what we are. But with this census campaign, it's really made me question how I have presented myself in the non-civic society. I do what I can for the non-Kashmiri community, and I think it's important that we all not only have a discussion within ourselves, but open it up. I mean, I do things with the Crawley Museum, I do things with different community activities, different campaigns, and I always include myself as a Kashmiri, and I'm here to educate, to inform, and that's my responsibility as a Kashmiri to do that. But I think I'm getting very good response from non-Kashmiris, and they say it's about time you wake up and know your heritage. It's about time you wake up and put yourself in the society as a whole. And we should be putting ourselves in a global context and in a wider society that and have a presence.
Thank you, Praveen. A lot of things you said. I just tried to put some notes, which I found really. You said about that UK society, civil society, they are open and to know and to understand, and that's where our point will be that we need to reach out now. We need to tell them now, and it's very important that who we are as an individual and what are our roots, and you, as you said, that historical map. Is in the UK is filled with different colors and different races, and we have to put ourselves out, as you've been encouraged by not by only by Kashmiri diaspora but outside it as well. My question is to Adil. Adil, just because we are talking a lot about identity, we're talking a lot about our numbers and figures. As an individual, what is identity for you? And why is it important for you?
I'll locate my answer in the census campaign itself. So the Office of National Statistics has a particular view on the words they use for identity, right? So it's useful for our conversation right now as well to understand those words. They use, for question 14, they use the word national self-identification. So for our campaign's purpose, we've identified that, listen, for question 14, you can identify yourself as British or English or Welsh or Scottish if you want to, but there's no harm in choosing Kashmiri as an other category in question 14 as well. So you can say British Kashmiri in other. So you have multiple national self-identifications. So that's at least personally my position, that we should identify ourselves as British Kashmiri in the question 14. Question 15 is about ethnic group feeling. That is also subjective. That's what kind of group do you feel most comfortable with as identified as? That's the vocabulary of the ONS, that, what is the group that I feel that I belong to as an ethnic group? How would I like to be identified as such? So that is, for me, most comfortably, I would feel Kashmiri. Given the complexity of within Kashmiris, there's multiple layers upon layers of ethnicity and class and all of that stuff, like in any group. But it is most useful to think about identity as hona or being, and shanakht as banna for the younger people at least. So this might sound a bit complicated in Urdu and English, but I think there might be parallels in Kashmiri as well, in Koshor as well, that for our younger generation, it is their choice to feel Kashmiri. They don't necessarily come to it as a group feeling, but they come to it as becoming Kashmiri, like a second awakening. Like they're born into a Kashmiri family, and then they know they are Kashmiri, but they then become Kashmiri and become politically active later on in life. So it's very important to use the vocabulary of ban jana. Kashmiri mein ab ban gaya hu, ya main apne aap ko identify karta hu as a Kashmiri. I have Kashmiri heritage. I have a male body. I have long hair. I have multiple things, including Kashmiri heritage. So for the younger population of our community, they are becoming Kashmiri and aware of their Kashmiriness. And that's how I think we should connect to them at that level as well. Because we might have taken for granted that hum agar paida hue Kashmiri ghar mein, so we will feel Kashmiri all our lives. But that's not translates like that for our younger people. It's a real challenge to communicate in their language, I think, to connect with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Adil Sahab. Bilkul, you expanded the idea of Kashmiri identity, and that's really interesting. खुर्शीद साहब, आपके पास आना चाहूँगा. ये जो सरकारी फरमान निकला है, ये जो ऑर्डर निकला है, ये इससे पहले क्यों नहीं अचीव किया गया, या इससे पहले क्यों नहीं इस तरीके से इशू किया गया? Why it could not be?
Yeah, that's a good question. Is that why have we not been able to do this before? As I was saying previously, the technology to get people together to work on something has historically been quite difficult. That if you wanted to be in touch with somebody, you would have to phone up people, and you may talk to your neighbor and then that locality, but you couldn't get access readily to lots of people. Now, that technology like Facebook, WhatsApp, even people might know that in England we have, there are some, satellite-based TV programs that are based at different ethnic minorities, so we can get exposure on that. And there are local radio stations. So now that's the reason why technology effectively is allowing people to organize much quicker and and very quickly, and to get a large broad of interest. So we can create a video. I don't know, recently we can probably put it on this Facebook live later on, that the Kashmiri group has made a video telling people in England about the importance of this campaign, and I'm sending it to my friend circle and telling them, send it to somebody else, and within no time it will be hundreds of thousands of people will be viewing that. If I had to do something like that before 10, 20, 20 years ago, I would have had to print a piece of paper, photocopy it, and then how many could I do? 1, 20, 30, or 100? And then I'd have to walk around to each person. It just wasn't viable like that. Sort of things were done obviously in the old days like that, but this age now with social media makes it much easier. I'm sahal Facebook, WhatsApp, intihai sahal to do these things.
Well, thank you, Khurshid Saab. Yes, definitely. We are right now here talking about this campaign. Technology has organized it and made this more quicker, as well as social media.
The beta I'm sick I go back is this technology has allowed us to connect with others because it has made it easier for the Azad Kashmiri community to get acquainted with the valley. That didn't happen previously, because the Azad Kashmiri community has mostly been in the north of the UK. Valley based has been sort of spread out in a very also in, but their numbers were never significant, until, because I'm one of the from quite a long time ago in the UK, but we never had more than I would say about 200 families in the 80s, 90s, but now there's more, and so it's getting more easier to connect.
Definitely, it's definitely getting easier to connect. And things, as you said, Mr. Khurshid, that things were done before as well, but they weren't viable. It was a bit of cumbersome, it was time-taking, and more of resources were needed. And technology and just a switch or a button is helping us to spread as long as we want to and as far as we want to.
And also, we probably we didn't need the, we didn't see the importance of this. And now we have realized that that other communities are being registered in that census already and have been for a number of years now, that there is an aspiration, why not us? So,
Absolutely.
So that's another factor.
Absolutely. So it's our aspect, how we are doing it and how we are making it easier for other people to understand. I will go to Shaheen now. Shaheen, can you tell me, it's our way, what is the government, how does the government view about it, and state regarding this this BKIC or the census campaign?
Thank you, Amina. So the government doesn't necessarily tell us, what their view particularly is with regards to BKIC, but generally, with regards to part movements like BKIC, the government is very, very keen for communities to engage in the process. And I think taking part in the census and being actively involved is one of the means of this engagement. And it is really their aim to acquire as much as data is possible with regards to the, the population group. It's also a legal requirement. So you must have seen the information that the government has sent about censuses, that if we do fail to participate, there may be a penalty of up to £1,000. So it's hugely significant for the government and the local authorities to be able to have access to this data. Previously, unfortunately, as we've all said, Kashmiris have been almost omitted or sidelined because, the government or the local authorities never had access or any numbers or any figures to go by with. So, I'm a researcher as well, and in the world that we live, a lot of things are driven by data and by evidence. So whether that is governments formulating policies with regards to the health of the nation, economy, foreign policy, defense, all of it is based on and driven by what's the data, what are the needs, how do we cater to them. So they are very keen and interested. And similarly, councils, as you know, in England, a lot of the local services are devolved and councils run them and local authorities. And they are very receptive to our keenness and participation in this, because they need an accurate data as well to be able to monitor. for example, the local authority in Birmingham, they already use some of the data that's available to them to capture, this ethnicity and these various parameters. But obviously, because it's really based on what comes to them, it's determined by what they receive, and that's why we have to be actively participating. There was also a huge study done in Rochdale around, Manchester. It's an area up north. And the Manchester University were quite heavily involved in it. And again, the data that was available has had a significant impact in knowing what are the ethnic minorities, what are the challenges, why are they socially deprived, why are there a specific group of problems within that community. A year or two ago, you may have heard there was this whole scandal around grooming and, how the Asian community was really blacklisted. But instead of just, going by that headline, you also have to dig deeper down into looking into why that was happening there and what was the different things that were contributing to that. So on the whole, I would say, the government is very keen, very, very receptive to us being engaged in this process. And it's really up to us to show and step up to that responsibility, because apart from being a legal requirement, I think this is an opportunity and a right that we shouldn't lose to be recognized as an ethnic minority group within UK. Thank you.
Thank you, Shahina ji. It seems Adil.
In short, a brief summary.
मतलब बो वन ये कि युस ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट छु तिम छु तुते ज़्यादा आत्मज इंटरेस्ट थवान या तिमन छु आत्मजन यछान कि लोक करिन आत्मज शमूलियत क्याज कि तिंद खतर तशि फायदेमंद तिम हकन पत अथ पॉपुलेशन या अथ एथनिक ग्रुपस या कशरन तिथे पठन सहूलियत मुयसर करितन इसलिए छु वारिया जरूरी शुक्रिया
शुक्रिया शाहीन जी. आदिल साहब, आपसे मेरा सवाल है कि what are the immediate and most visible benefits of the success of this campaign, and what would be the political and socio-economic benefits of it within United Kingdom?
Dekhiye, we've listed a lot of them already since the beginning of this program, that all the advantages that we would have in being visible in the health sector, in education, in employment, in housing especially. But other than that, I think the biggest long-term benefit perhaps for me as an activist would be that a lot of us begin to recognize and ask this question of ourselves of identity, and not just for the census, but for the long term. That I ask myself, what have I done today? What have I done today for the cause and for the community? What have I done this week? And what have I done this month? This sense of identity awareness would be the most beneficial thing which lasts for a long term, because, eventually all of us are volunteers in this campaign. Whatever resources or abilities we have personally in our professional lives, etc., we bring to the campaign, right? So that is what is the most interesting thing about this network, is that we're all contributing to the best of our abilities. And this whole, the feeling of belonging and being able to do something and contribute something to the cause that we all are somewhat committed to at some level or another, right? Like, otherwise it doesn't make sense. It's not just any community. This is the Kashmiri community we're talking about, with the whole history of baggage, which means what Kashmiri means, from where we come from, and the troubles that the people who face in those areas have in the first place. So this is it's a hugely advantageous moment for us to the more we put into this participation, into this campaign, the more I feel more connected as a Kashmiri, and that's a personal benefit to me. And I hope others will also realize the same thing, that there's no way I can convince my Kashmiri brethren and sisters that participate in this and it's going to benefit the whole community. People want to know, how does it benefit them personally, right? So it makes me feel more Kashmiri, and I think that's the biggest benefit it accrues to me as a person. Thank you.
Thank you, Adil. Yes, definitely. I mean, we did talk about its short benefits, but in the long term, it's very important for us, for our identity, and making awareness of it as well. As you rightly said, what are my contributions and what I have done for this community, and I definitely I'm with you that it definitely makes us feel connected. I'll go to Parveen on this. That we talked a lot about the Kashmiri identity and how we have done in this campaign or BKIC. Can you just tell for the viewers, because I think you will be able to answer this, how prominent is the Kashmiri identity in the UK? Just tell the viewers about it, Parveen.
Yes, we've mentioned this, that when the first and second generation came in the 50s and 60s, they didn't have time to analyze themselves. They didn't have time to look, okay, this is our identity, what can we do? There were very much economic and social elements to their lives. So they didn't have time for all of this. But now with the new generations, we have the ability, we have the skills, we have the resources to think about who we are, where we want to go. And I want to really emphasize that with this campaign, we need to leave a legacy. We need to leave a legacy for the next generation. We cannot miss this opportunity to put Kashmir on the global map. And I think we all are responsible, we all are accountable as Kashmiris, no matter where we are. And I think we cannot leave these opportunities. And within England, and England is a very open society. There's no place where we cannot stand up and wake up and let our voices be heard, that we can have our voice being heard. We have the platforms, we have the dedication, we have the passion. There is no excuse now not to take this campaign to the next level and to keep it going and continue going, that we are Kashmiris, we are proud, we are here, and everybody must hear our voice. And there's no excuse for us not to do this now.
Thank you, Parveen. Now I want to go to Shaheen ji, and my question to you is, what has been your experience since you have been there from a long time? What has been your experience about Kashmiri British nationality issues and all that stuff?
Thank you, Tahir. It's actually quite a coincidence that end of March this year, 2021, I would have been in UK for 19 years. I first came here end of March in 2002. So having come from a small place, which is the Valley of Kashmir, to UK, where the current population is 66 million, it was a big world for me to begin with. And what I very quickly realized was the diversity and the multicultural aspects that you see in the United Kingdom. And really for the viewers, out of the 66 million, that is the current UK population by the last figure, which was done a couple of years ago, about 14%, which is roughly 9.5 to 10 million people, are actually immigrants like myself, who've come from outside UK and, they live here now. And out of this 9.5, 10 million, me as a Kashmiri, I'm part of a bigger family, which is, roughly just over 1 million. So, I see myself as part of this Kashmiri community, which is part of the larger Black and Asian minority ethnic community. And then obviously we are the larger part of the British society as a British Kashmiri. What I also realized was that, yes, it's a very tolerant society. There are opportunities. You are treated with generally with fairness. There's a lot of transparency. There's also racism. There's also discrimination. There's also prejudice. So you have to, be aware of all of these things. But what is your role, as a British Kashmiri, to make an impact on all these different aspects of things? If I then really break it down to my profession, so I work for the National Health Service, which is the main health provider in the UK. It's the 5th largest employer in the whole world. And again, if we look at the composition of who does NHS employ, so NHS employs 1.3 million people. That's by the data of 2020. And predominantly, the staff is white. So it's 78% of this number. But 22%, which is a huge number, is from this ethnic group. But again, really going back to what I said about prejudice and discrimination, although 50% of junior doctors comprise of Asian, Chinese, African doctors, and only 30% are the white British. As we go higher up in ranks, in hierarchy, the proposition is, the numbers reverse. So the top 56% of jobs, whether it's management, it's consultants, it's chief executives in the NHS, that's still held by the white British people. And it's only, 29 or less percent that comprises of others. So, there is this disparity. And that may again be, as Parveen said, the generations that came before us, the first, second generation, they mainly came here as immigrants, as working class people, worked extremely hard, but they were really settling into a new country, wanting to cater to their family's basic needs, food, housing, putting a meal on the table. We have, alhamdulillah, progressed from there on, but still there is this disparity. And that really tells us that we need to do a lot more to uplift our communities and create opportunities in education, in public sector, in jobs. Businesses should really create opportunities for us. And that again can happen when we are recognized, when there is that awareness, when we work together, when we have that basic sense of why it's important that all of us together are recognized as an ethnic community. Just to give you a personal example, I've been a consultant in the NHS for just over 10 years. But I remember my first or second job interview that I applied for. I wasn't even shortlisted, and I wondered why, because I fulfilled, all of the parameters. And believe it or not, the panel shortlisted was predominantly Asian. And, so there is something within us as well. There are so many groups. So I think this is the opportunity for Kashmiris to not only reach within one another, to be stronger, to be together, but also to reach out. And I think we are very capable, committed, hardworking people. And together, I think we are a lot more stronger. We are, much more capable. And then at a family level, as Adil said, it's about telling your children you're Kashmiri, but what does that actually mean? Are you educating them about the history of Kashmir? Are you telling them what the current, situation is? Are you telling them what has been, the sacrifices made, the difficulties, the conflicts? And are you also obviously giving them that sense why for them having that identity is important? So I think Adil already spoke about it. It's about really thinking at an individual level who we are, what do we think about ourselves, how does the world view us, and what defines me? So we can start from that individual level, go into our professions, our jobs, go then to the larger society. And in all those different roles, what I see is unique about me, which connects me, to the panel here, but to the 1 million British Kashmiris in UK, but to many more million Kashmiri diaspora across the world, and to my own people in Kashmir, and I mean all areas of Kashmir, is that basic identity of being a Kashmiri. I hope.
Thank you, Shaheen. You can take a breath now and a sip of water as well.
Yeah, I think I've said a lot. بنیادی پہچان یہ اکھ بنیادی شناخت امہِ سۭتۍ پتہٕ باقٕے چیٖز تہِ چھِ اَتھ پٮ۪ٹھ ایڈ گژھان تۄہہِ کیٛاہ چھُ فیملی نیم یا تُہۍ کۄس زبان چھِو بولان تُہۍ چھُوا ڈاکٹر تُہۍ چھُوا ٹیکسی ڈرایور تُہۍ چھُوا انجیٖنیر تۄہہِ چھا خانٛدر کٔرِتھ تۄہہِ کیٛاہ چھُ قبیٖل تُہۍ کتھ علاقس منٛز چھِو روزان یِم سٲری چیٖز چھِ پتہٕ اَتھ سۭتۍ ایڈ گژھان مگر یُس بُنیٲدی چیٖز اَسہِ سارنٕے منٛز کامن چھُ یا سُہ چیٖز یُس اَسہِ سارنٕے اکھ آیڈنٹی چھِ یوٗنیٖک سُہ چھُ کہِ أسۍ چھِ سٲری کٲشِر سُہ چھُ ساروی کھۄتہٕ اکھ مےٚ باسان میانہِ خٲطرٕ پٔرسنلی چھُ اکھ سۄ واریاہ سپیشل فیٖچر تہٕ یِم تہِ میٲنۍ چاہے فیس بُکس پٮ۪ٹھ فرینڈ چھِ یا ٹویٹرس پٮ۪ٹھ چھِ بہٕ چھَس پننہِ آیڈنٹٹی منٛز یہِ ضروٗر کران پنُن پان ریکگنایز آی میک اِٹ شور دیٹ دے نو آی ایم اے کشمیری because I take pride in that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we should all be proud of being Kashmiri. And that rightly said, Shaheen, that it's how you define yourself and how you get connected together as a Kashmiri and how you reach out to other people as well. Honestly, we run out of the time now. I would ask each of you to give a message, the last message. I'll start from Mr. Khurshid, if he can start with what will be your last message to the people who are viewing us or who will listen to us later on, Mr. Khurshid, and then followed with.
Obviously, it's important, this identity thing. One thing I would say important is that not to get carried away at the same time. Akh cheez chu identity campaign mas you chu zan gasan insanas basan budima tik kar the bey chu potus government chu duty me vatnaun ki cheez but insanas man chu zehnas mas thavun tamis te cha pane karun kam you chu no atke chuna ye panun culture atke chuna ash chut as gachi har kun cheezas mas agar na insan pane te kari kam you chu bad mushkil cheez vatnas kya na to chu su banan atke chuna kam jada relationships so badli gatsan atke chuna mangani yot bas pan karan ki hin you chu theek son ti karun atke chuna gasin is gatsan in ganzram yet mans to son atke chuna government gets karan understand my question ti gatsan was in atke chuna dynamic education atke chuna Tatmans karun atke chuna do the best that they can. You don't need to wait for other people to make success. You are responsible for your life and your future. You have to do the best. Don't rest on other people just because you have put a tick, and because the negative aspect is that the people in the larger community can see this tick exercise as an exercise where then jobs have to be given to people, which creates a certain amount of resentment. That's just worth noting, but there is nothing wrong in us representing our identity and being counted because everybody else is doing it, but also be positive people as well at the same time.
Thank you, Khurshid Saab. Now, Parveena ji, if you would like to give the last message, and you can be bilingual so that you reach to the wider audience.
No, I think I'll stick to English. My message to everybody is unite. Unite together as a community, unite together as a one whole identity. Stop dividing each other, stop being divisive. Unite, be one voice, and inshallah, identity is just one step in the UK. So let's make Kashmir a global issue. Let's make Kashmir identity as a whole, and let's all unite together as a community, because we can be more successful when we are together than if we are behaving individually or acting individually. So please, we've had the chance to have our voice heard. Let's all unite together.
Thank you, Parveen. Yes, let's get united and let's get heard. Adil, your last message?
My last message is 3 sentences in 3 languages.
Go ahead.
It's a reference back to Iqbal, because Amina began with Iqbal, so I thought we should end with Iqbal as well.
No, sorry, I'm going to conclude with Iqbal also. I'll give you the chance to say one.
Okay,
I don't mind.
fine. So when Iqbal is asked in Javed Nama about what a millat is, God character responds, Hazaran chashm budan yak nigah, which translates into Urdu as Hazaro aankhon ka ek hi nigah ban jana, or which translates into English as when the 1,000 eyes align in one view. It doesn't mean they all have the same view. It doesn't mean they all have the same perspective, but they're aligning to a single view. So it's a message about unity, but not destroying the heterogeneity within a community. There's difference between a community, but we begin to exercise, to begin to look at in the same way for a moment at least. Thank you.
Thank you, Adil साहब. शाहीन जी, आपका आखिरी पैगाम क्या होगा, मतलब आपका पैगाम क्या होगा?
आखिरी पैगाम मैं उठती हूँ, मेरे स्क्रीन पे है, आप इसे देख लें. I hope everyone is able to see that.
Yes, Atwas together for Kashmir. That is a lovely message, I would say.
अमित मतलब जो ये कि ये सारी वनुक्तानियत होन, I suppose yakjut rozun, let's all be united together, and let's all unite together for Kashmir, and we will be stronger together, and we can achieve far more than we can imagine. Thank you.
Definitely, Atwas, that means getting together. Thank you, Shaheen. Thank you, Parveen. Thank you, Adil. Thank you, Khurshid Saab. Before I conclude this program, as I mentioned to Adil that I'm a Iqbal fan. I didn't know you are also. I'll conclude it. One of the one which I like. It's beautiful. एक बहुत खूबसूरत शायर है. मगर before I say that, I know this is it's a very difficult. मुश्किल बहुत है ये जो हम करना चाहते हैं, मगर नामुमकिन नहीं है. So that's why I'll say that तुंदई बादे मुखालिफ से न घबरा ए उकाब, ये तो चलती है तुझे ऊंचा उड़ाने के लिए. I hope you understand what it means, that there will be difficulties, but yes, we will get together and we will definitely, be there where we want to. And thank you, everyone. And inshallah, be samko is be yati pattern, yati pen online pattern, nevis haftas, neis ekis topicus pattern. Diyo ijazat, Khuda Hafiz.